guys, this is Chuck Myers. I'm here at 220 Studios, and what I want to do in this video briefly is give an overview of Sony's current Alpha system. I'm not going to get real deep in the weeds with any specs, details. I have all the latest cameras here, a pretty good selection of lenses. So right now I just want to give this kind of an overview of what they are, what the differences are, the basic differences, and some of my, I just want to share some of my experiences with these cameras with you. Overall they're awesome cameras. The current line is the A7 Mark II. These cameras have all been refreshed within the past year. I have the A7 Mark II. I have the A7R Mark II. The A7S Mark II, and the last kind of legacy camera here, this is an 8-mount camera. This is the A7VII Mark II. And at this point, really the only reason I have kept this camera around is for shooting sports. It's fast action in the daylight. I've just found that the newer A7 cameras, they're superior in low light to these older the older Sony A mounts that still had the SLT technology, and that's all. So I would get a Sony A6000 to replace this camera, but I'm waiting for Sony to refresh that. That camera's getting a little long in the tooth, and there should be a replacement coming soon. So I've been holding out on that. If they do refresh the A6000, I'll definitely be replacing this A7VII Mark II. I had shot the A99 when it was out, the A99, the A7VII. I love those cameras. They were great, but basically the writing's kind of on the wall. All Sony's innovation is going into this full-frame E-mount system, these smaller bodies that with the newest refresh have gotten a little bit bigger, but it's fine. They feel great. Lots of tech packed inside. They perform great. Image quality is improved. Autofocus has improved across the board. We got 4K recording, all kinds of features, and really, you know, Sony's the only company doing anything like this out there. So I give them a lot of credit. All right, let's get into it here. I told you what bodies I have. I got all the current FE bodies, the A7 II. Some of the lenses I have here, older A-mount lenses that I still use. This is the 70-200G Mark II, and you'll see on here I have an adapter. This adapts the new E-mount on the camera body to the older A-mount lenses. This particular adapter is the LAEA3. They also make an LAEA4, which I've tried. I've used them both. The LAEA4 adapter had the translucent mirror in there, so you did get a little bit of that light loss, which was a bit of an issue depending on what you did with those older A-mount cameras. The LAEA3 is basically just a spacer with the computer works inside. It's awesome. I love it. It's simple. It lets you, for instance, on the A7R II, lets you use the 399 phase detect auto points on the sensor. It's beautiful. It works great. I love it. One thing I would say is I've used this to shoot some football games, and you do a lot of running around chasing after. You shake it a little bit, it'll jiggle loose just enough that you'll lose the autofocus, and all of a sudden you'll find yourself in manual focus. So one thing to keep in mind if you're going to be running around, you shake the camera a little bit using this adapter. At least I found that it does come loose and you lose your autofocus, and at which point you kind of have to turn it off, remount the lens, remount the adapter, and kind of start over. But overall, I'm really happy with that EA3 adapter. It focuses a lot faster than that EA4 did. All right, another A-mount lens I have here. This is the 7-400. This is again the Mark II version of this lens. This is a big lens. Very versatile. It's not constant 2.8, which is, not spending $10,000 for a lens. This is what you're going to get. Variable aperture, 4.5 to 4 to 5.6. So it's not bad. Works great in daylight, and shoot at night. You need pretty good lighting. Otherwise, you're going to be cranking up your ISO. But I've used this lens on these little cameras. Still works great. Used it with that LAEA3 adapter. I like it in the daytime just because of the variable aperture. When I'm shooting at night, I still go back to the old faithful 70-200 2.8 lens. And let's see, I do have another A mount lens here. This is an old Minolta lens, which did work on the Sony A mount system and will work on this FE mount system using an adapter. So it still works great. It's a 50mm lens. It's just kind of fun to use, just being an old lens, and of course you can pick all these up real cheap nowadays. Other lenses here, moving on. FE lenses I have mounted on the A7 here. This is the 24-70 FE. F4 works fine. It's good general purpose lens. You know, doesn't get a lot of great reviews online. It suits me just fine. You know, I use it a lot. It's just kind of a workhorse lens. You know, F4 is kind of a bummer. Shooting indoors, shooting outdoors, it's no problem. Same thing with this is the 70-200 G lens. FE mount, again, constant F4 aperture, which again, in low light and at night is it makes it a little more challenging. But you know what you do, you crank up the ISO. These cameras are all perform much better at higher ISO than the older A mount cameras do. So you can usually get away with it. Both of them, even at using the F4, shooting portraits outside, the bokeh is still very pleasing, works great, really have no issue. I use this lens quite a bit shooting portraits outside, just because it's a little lighter, a little smaller, a little easier to carry around than the old 7-2 2.8. And the autofocus works flawlessly on it, which is something else I like. You don't have an adapter in there. There's nothing really can go wrong. So the autofocus locks on quick. Just works great. I love it. All right, then these are a couple E-mount, full-frame E-mount specialty lenses. This is the 90mm macro f2.8. Beautiful lens. It's also actually, works nice for doing portraits as well. 90 mil is a pretty nice portrait length. But great for doing macro shots, any close-up work. Very sharp. Love it. Great lens. It's a little big as these lenses go. You want to see it what it looks like mounted on the camera. It's actually pretty nice to hold though. It's not terribly big. There it is. I mean, it looks great. Feels great in the hand. It's awesome. All right, it's just that lens is a joy to shoot with. I love it. Okay, and the last lens that we have here, I think I covered them all. Another awesome lens, specialty lens. This is the Zeiss 55-1.8. Awesome lens, super sharp. Bokeh is beautiful. Focus is fast. Tiny, light. Just great. Great all-around lens. It's fun to use. Sometimes it's fun to put a prime on and leave the zooms at home. Just challenge yourself a little bit. A lot of fun to shoot with. All right, these are great lenses. So again, on the E-mount side, these would be your native lenses. Totally work. They all focus well. You got the 7-2, f4, 55-1.8, 90 f2.8, and the 24-70 f4. Again, good general purpose lens. All right, so that's the lenses. Again, the A-mount lenses, they still work great. Using this adapter, very happy with it, no problem. They're just, they're a little bit bigger and heavier than the newer FE mount lenses. Okay, let's get to the bodies here real quick, an overview. I told you about the A7 II. I'm not going to get into that anymore. I will replace that camera as soon as Sony revs the A6000. Okay, so I'm not going to go in any particular order, maybe the order that they came out. Sony doesn't really seem to have a flagship model. I guess if you had to pick a flagship, it might be the A7R II, but everybody might have a different opinion on that. So really these three camera bodies are all, they're specialty, they all have a specialty. I won't say they're specialty cameras. I think they're all good general purpose cameras. But they are all good at they excel at one particular thing. And I really like what they've done. I really do. So let's start with the first one that came out, the first one that was refreshed last year. This was the late last year. This is the A7 Mark II. I guess, you know, people would call this a general purpose camera. It's 24 megapixels. The big thing that was added to all of these bodies when they revved them is the in-body image stabilization. So now you don't just need to rely on whether your lens is image stabilized or not. These cameras all have 5-axis stabilization built in, and it works. It totally works. As soon as I got it, one thing that I really started shooting, you know, you can go shoot at night. You can shoot buildings at night. It comes in really handy for that. You can shoot handheld, you know, hold it, use the articulating screen, get low, get a nice angle on a building, and you can usually shoot at 1/10 of a second or even slower than that to keep your ISOs down, keep your aperture where you want it. So, I mean, it totally works. Like I said, it comes in real handy for shooting in low light, particularly when inanimate objects. All right, so that's the A7 II. The autofocus system is improved. I think it might have like they all have phase detection systems now. I forget. It's got like 120 some phase detect points, something like that. I'm going to be wrong on some of these details. I wouldn't fret about it. I can tell you I've used this camera to shoot sports. I use it for shoot portraits, landscapes. I've used it for everything. Like I said, the 24 megapixel sensor is very nice. You got the typical excellent Sony high dynamic range. Captures lots of detail. You can really play around with it in post-processing. Totally thrilled with it. I've actually gone back to shooting this camera a little bit more recently, just because as opposed to the A7R II, which we'll get to, you know, the file sizes you get are a little bit smaller, and that can be nice sometimes. You have a big shoot taking a lot of pictures. So great camera, always in my bag. A7 Mark II, works great. Okay, next camera that came out then was the A7R Mark II. And as I said, if you had to pick what might be their flagship model, I would probably pick this one. 42 megapixel sensor is huge, probably way more than most people need, but me personally, you know, I'll take as much detail as you can give me. It lets you crop in. You know, cropping's not, in my opinion, cropping's not always a bad thing. You know, the camera sensors are all 3x2. Your shot may not always be in that particular aspect ratio. You might want to crop just to change the composition of a photo. I have no problem with that. And 42 megapixels gives you a lot of leeway for doing that. It's also nice doing portraits. You have a lot of, you know, if you're going to do any retouching afterwards, you just have a lot of information to play with. And that goes for anything you're shooting, portraits, landscapes. I've shot sports with this camera. I'm sure not too many people will tell you that the A7R or any of these cameras are sports cameras, but I've done it. I shot sports all fall with these, high school sports, you know, you name it. I shot lots of stuff at night, and they work great. You're going to get you know, 5 frames per second, which isn't a Canon 1DX. I know, I get it. All right, so you know, I shoot sports at night. Even I'll use the A7R II. I'll put a 7 to 200 on it, either the 2.8 or f4. Both work great. You know, I'm going to be shooting about 6400 ISO. I can control that in post-processing. It's not too bad. The noise is very well controlled in all these cameras. Now, I wouldn't do that in the A77 Mark II. Their ISO 6400 gets pretty messy in that camera. But these camera bodies, it's all great. So, you know, you can keep the shutter speed up, shoot quick, 42 megapixels again, really crop in. So, you know, so maybe I'm not using a 300 millimeter, 400 millimeter f2.8, you know, giant lens. So I'm using something a little bit smaller, but I have all that information, so I can crop in and make the shot a little tighter, get it where I want it. Works great. I can't say enough about it. This has probably the most sophisticated autofocus system of the 3 new cameras. 399 on-sensor phase detection autofocus points. It really works well. You know, it'll miss. I'm sure it's not a professional sports camera. It's worked for a lot of the stuff that I do. It will miss, but it hits enough to make it, I think, totally feasible camera for action. Obviously, it's great for landscapes. As I said, I like it for portraits as well. All that information, it just gives you a lot of latitude to mess with it in post-processing and make the image whatever you want it to be. Video, records video in 4K internally. Another nice feature to have. I've recently started doing some of that. 4K, just kind of similar to the 42 megapixel sensor for still images. Shooting 4K gives you a little more flexibility in post-processing. If you're not going to output the 4K, if you're going to output the 1080 or 720, which are still HD resolutions, having that extra resolution recorded, you have the information. You can punch in, you can pan and scan and zoom around in the image a little bit doing video. Again, it just gives you a little more flexibility. So, A7R Mark II, fantastic camera. Love it. This would be my go-to camera right now. Just absolutely love this camera. All right, last one. Hope I'm not going into too terrible much detail here. This is the most recent one that came out. This is the A7S Mark II. These are, and as the A7S was last year, these are film cameras. These cameras are focused for doing videos. 12 megapixel sensor. So what you're going to get here in stills and video is outstanding low light performance. I've shot this camera doing receptions and indoor events where the lighting is terrible and you're stuck to shooting ISO 12,800 or even higher, and the images, they come out clean. They do. You got to do very little work to them afterwards. So that's the advantage. If you got to shoot anything in low light, if you're a still photographer, anything in low light, and you need that 12,800, 25.6, it goes up to 400 some thousand. I don't know how realistic that is to ever use, but I've used it at 12.8 and 25.6 ISO, and the results are very, very nice. Better than the other two cameras. Well, the other two will still give you usable results. It's just simply better coming off of the 12 megapixel sensor. It's also great for video. It does 4K internally. This is going to have the most video options. It's got all the S-Log options, and they added another one this year, or you just get a real flat image and then you can color grade it in post. So, I guess in summary, there you got your three cameras: the A7 II, A7R II, and the A7S II. Each one is a little bit different. They're all excellent. It just might depend on, if you're going to pick one, then if you're going to just pick one of these bodies, you're going to have to decide what is most important to you. If you want to do a little bit of everything, you don't care about 4K video, you got the A7 Mark II. All right, it doesn't do 4K. It doesn't do 4K video. It does 1080. Totally fine for video. Works great. So, I hate to just use the term general purpose, but it is. It's general purpose. Focus as well. 5 frames per second shooting. Works great. All right, if you're going to be shooting low light, you don't want events indoors, anything in low light, or video, A7S II, 4K video. Maybe get the best, highest resolution, landscapes, portraits. You want the most detail, the most flexibility, A7R II. All right. That's about all I can. That's really about all I can think of this time. Like I said, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of some of my experiences. I've shot with all three of these cameras in a variety of conditions. They're great. They really are. So if there's more detailed questions you have, leave it in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. This was 220 Studios. See ya.